Hello, everyone. Welcome to Book Talk with Cara. It is Tuesday night, and tonight I am excited to introduce you to my new writing friend, Michelle Aleckson. She is a debut author whose second book will come out in 2 weeks. And so I'm excited to introduce you to her and give you a chance to get to know her and a little bit more about her book. So Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, love to. Again, my name is Michelle Aleckson. My writing name, I often use my maiden name too. So Michelle Sass Aleckson. And I live in central Minnesota. I've got 4 kids and my husband, and we kind of live out in the country here. And I did homeschool, but now kids are in school full time and I'm writing. So
That's awesome. So how long did you homeschool? Because that's something that you and I share, is that I had
yeah.
homeschooled for 12 years, and now my two who are still at home and in school are in public school. So how did you
Yeah.
come to your homeschooling journey and all of that?
I started when my oldest was in kindergarten. It just a typical classroom wasn't a great fit for him. So we started then. And that was, well, he's a junior now. So
Okay,
it feels like it
awesome.
flew by. And with all 4 of them, the last ones, I just stopped. Last year, I did halftime with my youngest too.
Okay.
He's in school full time. So
Yeah, it's always interesting to see people's journeys. And I know with like 3 of our kids were born in the fall, so they were just ready for school before they were technically old enough. And so, and because I'd been homeschooled, it was like, oh, I can do that. Although I don't know about you, but the thing that intimidated me the most was teaching reading. Because I was like, if I don't get that right, everything else is going to be harder. And so that was the thing, that if I can just get them reading, then we can do this.
I was really blessed with kids who got it like that. I mean, they were reading before kindergarten, but I was always worried about math because I'm like, oh no, that's not my forte. So there's a reason I work with birds. So
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, because I think it was about algebra 2 was where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to cap out on my ability to feel really comfortable, but counting bears, Legos, and like, we can use all the props to get this, at least the early concepts across.
Right.
So tell us about your books, because you're writing as part of Sunrise Media with the Susie May Warren series. And so you're in Deep Haven and you're writing books. So how did you get that opportunity, and what has it been like?
It's been incredible. I have been a Susie fan for so long. And so, and I've been pursuing publication since about 2018, 2017, getting really serious about it. And when I saw this opportunity come up, I had to try. So I just auditioned, similarly to Andrea and Rachel, who I know you've already interviewed before, and so long is mentoring she wanted writers that had a voice that was similar enough to her Deep Haven series that her readers would really like it. So we sent a sample of our writing to see if we had a voice that would work with that, and then a premise, like an idea for a story. So they liked it enough that they wanted to see an actual chapter that I could write on that story, and then the rest is history. So
That's awesome. So how did you come up with an idea? Because Deep Haven was already really established by Susie and all of her writing and her books. And I mean, they're just wonderful stories. So how did you look at that and then go, I know how I can slide in. I know how I can tell a story in this space and have it work really well.
Well, part of it was there's a little inspiration for my own story in that Deep Haven's a small town, and I live in a small town now, but I didn't grow up here. I moved here when I was 16. So coming from suburbia and bigger cities, moving here was quite the culture shock. And so I thought about taking that idea, and I brought an outsider and thought, what would they be like if they came to Deep Haven? And especially if they weren't the typical Midwestern or Minnesota nice, or, someone who's a little prickly. And I also a little twist on a Beauty and the Beast story. So I made my heroine the beastly one. And then, the hometown hero was kind of the beauty, but, just everyone loved him. And so how could we bring these 2 crazy opposite people together? So
That's so fun. Because when I was talking with Andrea one of hers was almost more of a Cinderella type story.
Yes.
Did you guys get together on that and go, we're going to retell fairy tales?
Right. We didn't. It was just, I love fairy tales. And, you almost always have something that you base your story off of, either like a twist on a well-known trope. So I was like, well, this is a trope I always enjoy. People that you would never put together, and somehow they come together. And I just wanted to explore that. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Both Andre and I kind of had little hints of fairy tale retellings.
Yeah, so your book that's getting ready to come out in a couple of weeks, what's the title for it?
That one's called Right Here Waiting. Yep.
And is that one have a fairy tale retelling as well?
Not really. By that time, I had enough people in our Deep Haven stories that I had someone's story that I wanted to tell. So that one wasn't as much of a Deep Haven, but it kind of is a little takeoff of a favorite rom-com of You Got Mail. So
fun.
we have that kind of storyline to it.
That's so fun. And I think there's a lot of us who You've Got Mail is one of our favorites, because my novella in A Christmas in Mistletoe Square has You've Got Mail kind of twist to it, and like the feel of the story. And then the author I was talking to last week had based hers on the You've Got Mail only playing with text and things like that. So how did you riff off of You've Got Mail? Was it the snappy dialogue? Was it the mistaken identity? What kind of piece did you pull out of the movie?
Right. It was definitely more of a secret identity. So one person realizes who they're chatting with online, and the other doesn't. And someone who's been far away, and all of a sudden someone else shows up in Deep Haven, but someone new. But my hero doesn't realize that this is the same person that he's been chatting with online for a couple of years. So.
Oh my goodness, that's so fun. So did you have to create an app or a platform for them, or did you work off of something that we're all familiar with?
I pretty much kept it vague. So, I mentioned, my hero, he's a dog sledder. So he kind of had an online following through his vlogs and through Instagram. And then I had just through a chat through that, that's kind of how the relationship developed with the heroine. So.
Oh, that's so fun. And I got to tell you, everybody's piling on with You've Got Mail's my favorite. Molly,
I know.
This is so fun. And Nina, and Nina asked a really good question. And this is one I didn't think to ask last week. So have you watched The Shop Around the Corner? Because that's the movie that inspired You've Got Mail.
No, I knew it was based on that book, and I didn't realize it was a movie though, too. So.
Yeah, it's a Jimmy Stewart movie from... the one we have, I'm pretty sure, is black and white. And so it's a really sweet story that then Ms. Efron pulled forward. And then instead of having Jimmy Stewart, of course, you've got Tom Hanks.
So that's right. Yes. Yeah. No, but I'll have to look into that. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's a good one, and it's different. There definitely are differences between the stories, but you can see the inspiration. So I bet you would really enjoy it, because it's it's kind of got a Christmas feel. So it's perfect to watch now.
Right. Yeah. And Right Here Waiting in this book, it takes place over November. So it's a really good fall Thanksgiving movie, or not movie, book. And, we talk about dog sledding and outdoor adventure. So it has a little bit of a Christmas feel. Not quite. It's more Thanksgiving, but it does go into December a little bit too. So.
Oh, that's so fun. So you mentioned dog sledding. Is that something that you've done, or is it an element that you had to research to incorporate into the book?
I had to do a lot of researching that. It's not something I've ever done, but living in Minnesota, especially in northern Minnesota where Deep Haven is set, there are actually people that dog sled up there. But it was really interesting to watch. I'm so grateful for YouTube. There's even documentaries about, I've heard of the Iditarod, so I learned a little bit about that, but there's also other really long dog sledding races like the Yukon Quest that are very similar, that take place in Alaska and Canada. So it was really fun to just to watch some of those documentaries and see what these people go through, and the dogs, and yeah, it's just fascinating. And then I watched Iron Will as the movie. That was the inspiration. So
Oh, that's funny. So, which one of your characters is into the dog sledding and the
That's
dog
my
racing?
hero, Nick. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And how did he get into it? I mean, how did you wake up and go, he's going to be into dog sledding? That is going to be what
Right.
this book has elements of.
Well, I actually introduced him in my first book, in Crazy for You. So in that one, my hero, Peter, he had a cousin, and I don't know where dog sledding came up, but he just had dogs and he lived in the woods and was a dog sledder. And then after I finished Peter's story, I'm like, I need to tell Nick's story, especially because uh, Nick was a bit of a truth teller for my hero, Peter. But the truth was, he was also pining for somebody in that story. And so the way things ended up, he's that heroine ended up being in Rachel's story. So he was going to be heartbroken, and I couldn't leave him that way. So
Oh,
story
yeah.
for Nick, and I already knew he was a dog sledder from Peter's story. So
Isn't it funny how we can get so attached to our characters that we're like, we can't just leave them. We've got to come back and give them a happy ending too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Someone new to Deep Haven for Nick.
yeah, that's great. So how did you find the writing experience? Because it's different when you're writing kind of it in conjunction with other people versus it's just me and my story world and that's it.
Right. I love the collaborating process. I love brainstorming with other people, and I just love that sense of community and connection with others. So, in a lot of ways, this was so up my alley. We were able to come together and to brainstorm our two books, and then now we're all working on a third book, a Deep Haven. And even though Andrea lives only about 100 miles away from me, not too far, and so I could see her pretty often, but Rachel lives in Oregon. So for all three of us to be together, and we were with Susie, and the first time we were also with Lindsay Harrell, our other editor, and just that process, one, to glean from people who are just incredible writers and then of themselves, and then to kind of go on this journey with two other newbies, so you don't feel quite so alone, and there's always someone to bounce ideas off of, and that's been just fabulous, really, and to have these friendships that I would have never had it not been, for Sunrise in this process. So
And writing can be such a solitary adventure where, I mean, it's you and your computer and you've got to come up with all these ideas.
Right.
What has the brainstorming process been like? Because I think brainstorming can just be magical, especially when you're doing it with people who understand your characters and understand your writing and kind of the elements that you bring to a story. So what was that like? Was it kind of intimidating at first, or is it something that you're like, man, I can't wait, this is the best thing ever to come up with ideas with other people?
Probably a little bit of both, because all of our brainstorming sessions when we were in person are, of course, with Susie. So we're going one who, pulls things off the top of her head, and I feel like I'm just plugging away and digging and just trying to find a nugget, and she's shooting ideas, boom, boom, boom. So, but at the same time, like, to have those cheerleaders and to have everybody's kind of ideas pulled together and to have something come out of it, it was really cool. And honestly, it was exhausting too, because it doesn't seem a lot, but sitting there with all that brain work really takes work. So it's we worked a full day to really hammer out who our characters were. So each story took a day, as far as really know our hero and heroine deeply before, and then we kind of come up with a rough plot outline, and then we would go to the next story. So it took a lot, but we learned so much in the process too. So
Yeah, because Susie is masterful at teaching writing and has such a great process that I can imagine having her push you like that would be amazing and draining and daunting and just all of it, energizing and exhausting all at the same time.
Oh, totally. But I would so do it again. It was great because, again, to learn from someone who just can pick it up so quickly and just so practical. And even though it's a similar process every time. Like every time I feel like I get it a little bit better, a little more understanding about that. I remember the first time I took a Susie class, for instance, she kept talking about goals and what your character's goals are. And I hate that word. And I just was having such a hard time with it because it's not something I do. I am not a goal-oriented person. I'm a very big picture person. And she finally was like, Michelle, what does your character want? And then it was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. So someone who could take this concept and make it understandable to the way my brain worked. And yeah, it's been great. And then every time we go through the process, I get it a little better. And I feel like I still have a way to go, but every step you're growing, and that's just so fun.
It is. And it's one of the things I love about writing. And I'll never
Yes.
arrive. And if I feel like I've arrived, it's time for me to stop, because there's
Exactly.
always more I can do and learn about story and characterization and digging deeper. And it's part of what makes it so fun, but also makes it exhausting. So
Right.
yeah, so you were in Deep Haven is a fictional town, and it's
Right.
based on a real town. Is that where, did you guys go to how do you say it? Grand
Grand
Marais?
Marais. Mm-hmm.
I knew I was going to say it wrong. So did you go to Grand Marais for your brainstorming? Did you have a chance to see the town, or did you just do like Google street walking and things like that?
Right. Well, I actually know of Grand Marais. My family and I, we've been camping there since my kids were really little. It's just such a great little town, and it's right on the north shore of Minnesota on Lake Superior. And there's a campground there, and so we always camp and walk around the town and do hiking. And there's just a ton to see in the area, a lot of beautiful rivers and hikes and waterfalls and stuff. So we've been going there every summer for a long time. And then and then I realized that that's what Susie's Deep Haven books were based on. Then of course that made it even better to go there. So it's a town we've loved. And then in our brainstorming, I believe Andrea has been there too. So the three of us knew it. And unfortunately, Rachel being in Oregon, she learned of Deep Haven through the books, through the Christensen series, the other books Susie wrote set there. And finally, at our last brainstorming session in June, we were all together working on our third book, and we did take it was a really fast trip, because it was about 5 to 6 hours away from where we are in the Twin Cities, to Grand Marais. And we got up really early one morning and we drove all the way to Grand Marais so Rachel could see the town too, and just kind of get a feel for it all, and they came back. But yeah, it's really the actual brainstorming there, but we actually did, all four of us get to be there. So
well, and several people in the comments are saying that brainstorming is their favorite type of storm, and I have to agree. There's so much magic that can happen. But
right.
Linda wants to know, yeah, anything's possible. But Linda wants to know, what genre do you write?
Oh, great question. I write contemporary romance then. And I also do a little bit of romantic suspense. So in my first book, there's a little more suspense or action elements to it. But
Awesome. Well, and Nina is headed to Grand Marais this weekend. So
I'm
jealous, Nina. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, have a donut for me. So
are there any things that she should see, or that others of us who may someday get there, that you're like, when you're there, you absolutely have to do X?
Right. Well, you have to go to World's Best Donuts, because they are the world's best. And our family likes to get them early in the morning and then take them out to something called Artist Point, which is this really interesting kind of a peninsula that goes out into the bay, but it has a T shape to it. And it's just beautiful. And we go out there and we eat our donuts for breakfast and enjoy the Lake Superior beauty.
That's awesome. Now, I'm assuming you go up there in the summertime and not in the winter.
Right.
But your first book is set there during November. So what are the Minnesota winters like? Because I've gotten a sense from other books set in Deep Haven that it's crazy. So what's it like as someone who's from that area?
Yeah, it's cold. It's very, very cold. And you have to be prepared for cold anytime from October all the way through May, and snow. Last year, this time we had snow on the ground. It's not typically that early, but you just have to be ready for it. And we've had years where we've had snow in May. My son's birthday is like May 12th, and he's had snow on his birthday before. So it's and a lot of sub-zero temps. So we really pride ourselves on being hardy Minnesotans that can survive the brutal extreme temperatures that we do.
Yeah. So Nina also wants to know, have you been to the folk school up there?
Well, we walk through there when I'm camping, and they always have such interesting things. So at the folk school, they have like bread making classes, but then they have how to build timber frames and how to do blacksmithing things, and lots of like everything from the small crafty knitting things to like big structures. So it's really cool to see all the projects that they're doing. But I haven't ever attended there.
Okay. Now that sounds like a really interesting way to, I guess, see how things have been done in the past and
Right.
what it's like. I can't imagine living that far north. Now, in Nebraska, we would always say, in theory, you can get snow from about now, end of October to Easter. So kind of that
Yeah.
October through April space, but it's not consistent. You don't get feet of it. It's
Right.
not at the same level. So I can't even imagine. I like snow.
Right.
But I don't think I'd like that much.
Yeah, I tend to burrow and hibernate in the winter, but I also live rurally, so we kind of have to drive to go anywhere and do anything. So you get really good at driving on winter roads and making sure you always have certain things on hand, and you know, learning how to stay warm.
Yeah. Yeah. Layers are really important, I would imagine. Lots and lots of
Yes.
layers.
Yes.
So Molly says, you're such a great storyteller and that she's loving all of this. So how do you think you became a great storyteller?
Um, I don't follow a typical path. When you talk to a lot of writers, a lot of them are like, oh, I've wanted to write since I was a child. And that was not true for me, but I did love reading, and I've always loved reading and stories. And I didn't get into writing because I think my first dream was really to have a family. Like I just
Mhm.
really wanted to get married and to have children and raise them. And then as that dream came true, then I felt like, well, now I need something else because these children are going to leave me. And when you mentioned just writing, there's always something to learn and grow in. I just it was really appealing to me for that reason. And then I realized looking back, like I didn't always write, but I did always love stories, and I did a lot of daydreaming. So I remember having those dreams in my head and thinking about like, oh, I didn't like how that book ended or how this movie happened. How would I change that? And daydreaming about that. So then
Yeah.
daydreaming really is writing stories and telling stories. I just down or typed out. So
That's awesome. So when you read a book, do you see the movie in your head, or when you're in a movie, do you imagine what the book was like or would be like?
oh, I wish I was more visual. I'm really more like, how does it feel? So I love the way words can evoke feelings and emotions, and but I'm not great at like seeing it in my head a lot. But I do love that about movies too. Like you could see it and pick up on certain things, but then in the book, sometimes you kind of understand someone's mindset so much more. So
Mhm.
it has that special depth, and that's always what I want to know. Like, oh, what are these characters feeling and thinking? And so that's my favorite part of writing it and watching and seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love looking at like origin stories. And so most people wouldn't go, oh, this is a super well told story. But I'm like, Black Widow, talk about a great origin story. And, helping
Ooh,
flesh out this really complicated character. And
yeah, I
in
love Black
some ways,
Widow.
yeah, yes, another Marvel person. I
Oh
love it.
yes.
I was grading to Endgame this weekend. I had 250 essays I needed
Oh,
to grade on a quiz, and I
uh-huh.
put on Endgame and just kind of trucked through them
Oh,
all. Yeah,
great.
because I've
Yeah, no, I
actually
was
done.
waiting for that one for a long time. In fact, my daughter, I have two boys and two girls, and my one daughter has red hair. And so we always try to pick a character that has red hair for her Halloween dressing up and costume. And so this year she's Black Widow. So I know sometimes she's blonde. She's been redhead before. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
yeah.
Yeah. During the pandemic, when we were kind of in lockdown, I watched all of the Marvel movies in
Oh,
order. And
yeah.
I had a little notebook. And my kids kept laughing at me because they're like, Mom, seriously? You're watching movies and taking notes? I'm like, this is storytelling 101.
Right.
This
That's
is my homework.
Right. And they've made this epic following. I mean, to
Yeah.
be able to weave all these storylines and characters and plot lines. Yeah, it is definitely worth studying to learn how to write a story well.
Absolutely. So now that we've been talking for a while, is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you're like, man, I'd really love to share this with those who are listening?
Um, well, I guess just the Sunrise books that they're coming to a conclusion. So if they've I have the sixth book and the third book, so now they've been coming out all year long. So this is the last book in the series, and it's just been an incredible journey. And I hope people enjoy coming back to Deep Haven and learning and hearing three new voices, and hope they're excited for more because we're writing more and yeah, and I'm also have some other writing opportunities that are coming up that hopefully I can make public soon too. So it's yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you tonight, and I hope to get to know some people on social media too. I'm really easy to find and love connecting with others.
Yeah. So what's one thing that readers can do that would be helpful for you?
Oh gosh. Right now, one of the things as a writer I'm trying to do is to grow an email list. So earlier before we were talking about how Facebook always seems to be changing things, or Instagram, and now it's owned by Facebook. So social media is great, and that's such an easy way to connect with people. But at the same time, it could change any moment. So one of the things I'm trying to do is build my email list. So if anyone was ever interested in knowing, for instance, like what good news I'm going to be sharing pretty soon or anything like that, following me on my website would be an awesome way to do that. So, and that's just michellealeckson.com. So pretty easy.
Awesome. And Linda was wondering, can you show the cover of your book?
Oh, I can show Crazy for You, but I haven't received my my author copies yet. For right here waiting. Oh, the light is there. We go.
Yeah, there you go. And these covers have been some of the best. I
Oh my
absolutely
goodness.
love the covers. Yeah.
And I really wish I had my other one because it's this warm red and it's got these little puppy dog cookies on it. That is just adorable.
It is. I've been seeing it on social media and it's so cute.
Yes,
So
cute. That graphic designer, Jenny, I believe her name is, has done an amazing job.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she really does. She did some of my books as they were coming back out.
Really?
And Jenny with Sledding Designs is just fantastic.
That's
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Yeah. And for those of you who want to tune back in next week, Jocelyn Green will be joining me to talk about her books. So look forward to introducing you to her as well, because she writes historical romance. So
yeah, she's
thanks
great
again,
too.
Michelle.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.